Hello and welcome to Lydie's Book Club podcast, where English learners fall in love with reading. I'm Lydie Bureau, I'm an English teacher in France and founder of Lydie's Book Club, the perfect place for English learners and non-native speakers who want to keep their English sharp while enjoying great literature. Each week on the podcast, we'll get a relaxing dose of English through guided readings and book talk, which is perfect for building fluency in a fun and meaningful way. Lydie's Book Club is more than just a book club, it's a global community for learners who want to improve their English by diving into adapted classics of contemporary novels. We focus especially on works by female authors, and every 2 months we explore a new book chosen with care and adapted to your level, especially for the classics. So usually we choose between upper intermediate B2 to advanced and original texts for contemporary novels. And our current book pick for May and June 2025 is Middlemarch by George Eliot, one of the most powerful novels of the 19th century. And don't worry, we're using this B2 level adaptation from Macmillan readers. So it's fully accessible to learners. So here you can see this is the original book. So the 800 pages, and it's condensed into about 100 and something pages. Yeah. So and the text is adapted, the vocabulary is adapted for B2. So if you're not used to reading in English, whether you're non-native or native speakers, this is a great start. And if you think this is a book that you would like to dig deeper into, or that you would like to have more details, well, then I invite you to read the 19th century edition. Although it will take much more time for you to read, and the structure and the vocabulary dates from the 19th century, so it's not an easy read, I would say. But if you feel yourself ready, then go for it. Definitely. So, if you're new to the story or the author, George Eliot, check out the episode 32 on Spotify or here on this YouTube channel. I'll introduce you to George Eliot and explain why Middlemarch is a must read. So today we are reading chapters 9 to 12 together. And if you'd like to join this session live on Zoom, you just need to subscribe to the book club. You've got the link in the description, and you'll be able to follow the story more easily, improve your comprehension, and ask me any questions that you might have after I've done the reading. This is not something that I record. I stop the recording and then we have our little chat, and that's what's great with the guided reading, and yeah, because you're able to react at fresh, you on the instant about the chapters that we've read. And also make sure that you don't miss any online discussion workshop, because so this Saturday on the 7th of June, we're hosting our second group. No, sorry. Yes. Our second group discussion on chapters 5 to 12. There's been a little change. It happens sometimes when we can't host the workshop that the discussion workshop that I had planned. Then here it happened. So basically, I condensed two workshops. I was meant to do 5 to 9 last week, but it wasn't possible. So we will do a combination of two workshops this Saturday. So we will discuss chapter 5 to 12. So the chapters from last week and this week. So it's your chance in this discussion workshop to speak English, build confidence, and also connect with fellow book lovers around the world. And yeah, we're having a great time and fun discussing the book and the characters. So if you're ready to join us, just click in the description and subscribe, and click on the link, sorry, in the description and subscribe to become part of a supportive, inspiring, and book loving community that will help you read more, speak more, and enjoy English like never before, I guess. So let's get started with our guided reading today. So, last week, as I mentioned, we read chapters 5 to 9. So I will do a quick recap um, have if you've forgotten, and to just put you back into the atmosphere and the context of the novel. So remember, chapter 5 is about Rome. So Mr. and Mrs. Chasm are on a honeymoon in Rome. But as you might remember, this is not really a memorable honeymoon, because Dorothea is mainly on her own, and Mr. Casaubon doesn't make the effort to take her with him, and and have her assist him, really, which is what she expected, what she inspired to do with an intelligent man, and she expected him to take her under his wing, basically. And this is not the case here. So Dorothea is highly disappointed in that, in a way. And instead, who is going to show up? Mr. Will Ladislaw, who is a character that we've met in chapter 3, I think. Yeah, chapter 3. Dorothea meets him for the first time at Mr. Casaubon's house while she was visiting the house. And here they meet again. So at some point, Dorothea and Mr. Casaubon are at, where are they? At the Vatican, I think. And they, so they are in the halls, where in the rooms where there are portraits, and they're looking at where it's Dorothea who's looking at the portraits and the paintings, while Mr. Casaubon leaves her. He doesn't stay with her very long, because he wants to take advantage of being at the Vatican to look at the Vatican Library. So, so, no, Vatican Museum, sorry. So they're at the Vatican Museum. So Mr. Casaubon made the effort to go to the Vatican Museum with Dorothea, but then he can't help himself, and he leaves her again alone, because he wants to take advantage of this outing to look at the Vatican Library, at the books. Yeah. for his research. Remember, he's attempting to read the keys to all mythologies, his masterpiece, let's say, that he still hasn't written. So he's still in the research phase. So Dorothea is at the Vatican Museum, and Will Ladislaw had a glimpse of her. So he observes her, he sees her from afar, and is looking at her, and he notices that she is here in Rome. And the next day, he goes to visit uh, Dorothea after Mr. Casaubon has left the house, well, the apartment, I would say. So, and they are having a chat, and this is where we learn that Mr. Casaubon and Will Ladislaw are very different people, and that they don't really get along. And then when Mr. Casaubon comes back from his day of researching, Dorothea tells him that, well, unfortunately, she missed Will Ladislaw, who came to visit him. That was the excuse. Uh, Obviously, Dorothea doesn't think that Ladislaw came for her. But so she said to him that uh, Will Ladislaw came to visit him, but that he was not here, and um, and Casaubon doesn't seem to be extremely excited about this news, but he reacts more in a defiant way, or in a suspicious and jealous way. The fact that he doesn't like the fact that Ladislaw came while he was away, and that he had a chat with his wife alone. Chapter 6. Casaubon and his lovely young wife are back at Lowick Manor, Middlemarch, basically. So Lowick Manor is Casaubon's house. So they're back, and Dorothea starts questioning her decision of marrying Casaubon, and there is a hint of regret here, or she's not happy in this marriage. And as they come back, Celia, her sister, announce announce her that she's engaged with Sir James. So the infamous Sir James, who wanted to marry Dorothea in the first place. But, well, Dorothea was gone and only the sister was left. So I guess, well, why not marry the sister instead? She seemed to be docile and easy to get. So anyway, so Celia announces that they're engaged, and Dorothea, of course, is really happy for her sister. Then Will Ladislaw again, is making himself talked about, I would say, because he's sending. Oh yeah, he had sent a letter to Mr. Casaubon to ask whether he could visit Lowick Manor. But as you might guess, Mr. Casaubon is not really keen to have Mr. Ladislow, or his little cousin, here at Lowick Manor because he has a feeling that he's in love, or he has feelings for, he's more interested in his wife than in seeing his cousin. And on top of that, Ladislaw wrote a letter as well to Dorothea. And Casaubon doesn't like that as well. And they start arguing about the fact that it won't be possible for Ladislaw to come over because it will slow his research, and visits or guests tires him. Mr. Casaubon is a very um, unsociable, I would say, unsociable man. Doesn't he's not very interested in seeing people, or he doesn't seem to be very interested in anything else than his research, basically. His world revolves around himself, his needs, and his research, and doesn't really care much about what Dorothea wants or feels. And they argue, this is the second argument here after Rome. Um, and Dorothea starts expressing the fact that she is displeased about how things are going on in their marriage, always expecting from him to include her in his life, basically, and in his research, obviously. So they have this argument, and then Dorothea leaves the library because he's always in the library. So Casaubon is always in the library, so he leaves. So Dorothea and Casaubon were arguing in the library. So she leaves the library, and then she hears some noise, some books falling down, and Casaubon had just a heart attack or a stroke, we could say. So she's in shock, and she calls Lydgate, sorry, Lydgate, Dr. Lydgate, to examine her husband. And then we learn that Casaubon needs to rest because his heart is tired, and he any anything that could upset him, or he has to not, he shouldn't exhaust himself and have no nothing that would upset him. So otherwise, it could be fatal. So Lydgate can't really tell how many years he has left, because he can. It's this is the condition of the heart is very unexpected, and he could this could happen at any moment again. So that this is the instruction that Lydgate gives to Dorothea. So yeah, so any anxiety or overwork are bad, would be bad for him. So He has to have a very peaceful and quiet existence, but easily said than done. So, chapter 7 now, an engagement. So, here we meet a new character, Peter Featherstone, who is a relative of Vincey's family. He is the uncle of Rosamond and Fred, and is very ill. And everyone is expecting, but he's ill, but he's very rich. So everyone is staying at his house or visiting him, his family members and friends and relatives are always around because, well, they want their share of the of his wealth. But he's a very rude and bad-tempered man, especially to Mary Garth, who, if you remember, is the childhood friend of Rosamond and Fred is in love with Mary Garth, and he cannot wait for them to get married and build a life together. But the problem is that Fred is idle. Idle, IDLE, is a word meaning that he doesn't do very much. He's not hardworking. This is the opposite of a hardworking person. He's just expecting money to fall into his lap or on his shoulder so that he doesn't have to work. But he's not um, uh, bad intention, or he doesn't have uh, wrong intentions, I would say. But he's not very hardworking either. So that's something that Mary Garth is not happy with Fred. His father wants him to get into the clergyman profession, but Fred is definitely not into it. He likes horses and farming, but his father doesn't want to hear that. So he started his clergyman study, but he stopped. He didn't finish. He didn't get his degree. So that's also something that Mary dislikes about Fred. He's too idle. He didn't finish his degree. He's he doesn't know. He's in the same state as Ladislaw in a way, because he's living off the money of others. Like Ladislaw is living on the money that his cousin has lent him. Um, and both of them don't have purpose. They're looking for their purpose. And at this stage of the story, they are at this point in their life, and yeah, they are out of purpose, I guess, a bit lost. They're young characters, so it makes sense. Not everybody knows what they want from a young age. Uh, so here, everyone, so Fred and Rosamond especially, are expecting to get something from their uncle. Um, and and in the meantime, Rosamond starts falling in love with Dr. Lydgate, who is not really into getting married. He's not ready to marry now. He's not in a hurry. He wants to do his focus on his research, on his work as a doctor, and improve the hospital discover. He wants to continue make his discoveries, scientific discoveries, and keep working hard, and then and yeah, and heal people at the hospital, continue his work at the hospital. But Rosamond doesn't care about his ambition, or is not really aware of Lady Gates' ambition. She's very very attracted to him, or she made a whole she constructed a whole image around him, and all her as and basically Lydgate ticks all the boxes for Rosamond. He's not from Middlemarch. He's a doctor, so a well-respected profession. And although he's not rich, he has relatives. She made her research, so she knows that he has rich relatives at in the north of England, and she knows that her his uncle, for example, is a rich man, and his cousin is a baronet or something like that. Yeah. So and she expects that he'll become rich soon as well. Um, But Dr. Lydgate is not interested in becoming rich necessarily. This is not in his speech, in this discourse. He is what is more focused on is to have the opportunities to make his research. Actually, he's working for the hospital for free at the new hospital that has been built in Middlemarch. He's working for free. So you can see that he's not interested in getting rich that much. This is not his primary goal, although he this is an important fact, but this is not what he cares about. Um, so and when he sees Rosamond, he also flattered to see that she's uh, quite charming with him, and he plays that flirty game. So he's flirting with him, but it didn't think wrong, and he just he's just for fun and doesn't think about the consequences of his actions um, towards Rosamond, who starts developing strong feelings for him, and projecting herself marrying him. And people start talking about their relationship, and believe that they're about to get married. And Lydgate, falling from the clouds, he is made aware of that from his friend, I think Mr. Fairbrother, or from I don't know. I think from Fairbrother or Mr. Bulstrode. Maybe Mr. Bulstrode. I can't remember who's yeah, who's starting to make him aware that young ladies have to be careful these days. Because yeah, so Mr. Bulstrode, who is Rosamond's uncle, so he makes Lydgate aware that he needs to be careful with Rosamond because she starts developing feelings for him, and also rumor has it that he's engaged with her because they have been seen together in parties and ballrooms and stuff. Uh, so Lydgate start to realize that okay, this is maybe a wrong thing to get too close to her and stop flirting with her and stop seeing her. So he stopped his visits to the Vinci's family and for about 10 days or something. Um, and Rosamond starts questioning whether he was in love with her. So she starts being really sad of not seeing him anymore. And eventually, on the 11th day, after having after he had stopped going to the Vinci's, he eventually goes back to the house and sees Rosamond, who um, shares her unhappiness about the fact that she's disappointed that he doesn't care about her in a sense that he doesn't love her or is not interested of her in her uh, and starts crying. And Lydgate is such a kind man in a way, although he has those assumptions about women and their position in their couple in society. Um, he doesn't like to see her sad and fall into her charms and her trap in a way because Rosamond is used to she's a beautiful girl and she is used to get what she wants so she manages to get Lydgate fall for her in a way so in the end he proposed and he couldn't see her so sad, so he went to her and kissed her and um proposed. Last chapter we read yes last week, so a funeral and a will. So finally we could say in the end eventually Mr. Featherstone dies and everyone is gutted, disappointed because um, nobody gets anything from the will. So basically, Featherstone had made two will. One will about 10 years before his death, and and a very recent will, and the second will annuls basically all the will made 10 years beforehand. The first will actually was giving was instructing to give some money to here and there to the family members and to Fred. Fred was meant to inherit £10,000, but no, he doesn't get anything in the second will because everything goes to all his wealth and the estate goes to Mr. Rags. What's his name again? I forgot. Yeah, here. Oh, everyone is at the funeral, and yeah, Mr. Oh, Rig, but Rag. No, sorry, not Rag. So the heir to Mr. Featherston land and property is Mr. Joshua Rig, which is apparently, and he would take the name of Featherstone because he is a son, an illegitimate son, um, that he now recognizes as his, or acknowledge as his, and kept it secret from everyone. Surprise, surprise. So everyone is gutted, disappointed, and can't believe what they hear. And also, what we learn from Mr. from Ladislaw and the Casbons is, so remember, Will sent the letter that he would like to come over to Lowick Manor, but then Mr. Casbon has the stroke, and at that point, I forgot to mention so many things happening. I can't say everything at the same time, but Dorothea actually asks her uncle, Mr. Brooke, to write to Ladislaw that um, they cannot, so the Casabons cannot welcome him because his cousin, Mr. Casabon, he is very ill, and that they are very sorry. But Mr. Brooke has another idea in mind. He is about to get into politics with the reform bill and everything. Remember, the reform bill is this act allowing more people to be able to vote, and not just the rich man, but more accessible to a larger group of people. And that's a big change in terms of political decision and landscape. So obviously, the rich want to keep their position and they don't want uh, the lower rank of society to get power. So Mr. Brooke has some ambition, some political ambitions here. So he thinks that Ladislaw could help him. And also he bought a new journal, newspaper, and he thinks that maybe Ladislaw could be someone that could edit um, the the journal, which is called the Pioneer. Uh, and that also reflects George Eliot's own life because when she moved to London, she became a sub-editor of a new journal with radical new ideas. And she started her writing career with this job in London as an editor of the Westminster Review, owned by John Chapman. So here it's a little reference to her own experience as a young woman arriving in London, and the opportunity that she got when she arrived there. So Mr. Brooke, instead of just saying, no, no, you're not welcome at Lowick, you can't come, then he instead, well, he says that, and on top of it, he invites him instead to his house, Tipton Grange, to stay, and he offers him this job opportunity. Right. So it's been now 50 minutes that I've been doing this quick. That was meant to be quick. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. It took me 15 minutes. 15 minutes to do this recap of the four chapters, but there are so many things to say. I'm sorry. So now let's start reading chapter 9. The Cousins. Mr. Brooke had become very interested in politics. He had bought a local radical newspaper called The Pioneer and planned to use it to tell people about his ideas and the need for reform. The people of Middlemarch live in the past, Mr. Brooke said to Sir James Chatham one day. I want to interest them in new ideas, ideas that have changed the future in other countries. They could change the future here too. The old ideas are the best for England, Sir James replied. We both belong to good old families. We both own land and have money working for us. We must look after them in the old ways. People who live in the countryside or in small towns like Middlemarch do not like change. But Mr. Brooke did not agree with Sir James. My newspaper will explain everything, he said. I will show the people here that change will come, whether they like it or not. Factories are being built, and soon we shall have a railway, and of course, Parliament must be reformed. This is the most important thing, you know? Mr. Brooke also discussed his ideas with Will Ladislaw, who agreed with most of them. I can talk well, but I'm not good at writing my ideas down, Mr. Brooke told the young man. I would like you to explain these ideas in my newspaper. Will you help me? Stay here at Dipton Grange and we can work together. Soon, Will was writing many of the articles in Mr. Brooke's own newspaper. Mr. Brooke was delighted with the young man and he told Mr. Casborn so. Your cousin is a fine young man, Mr. Brooke said. He has good ideas, you know, and we work together very well. Good writing is a family skill, Casborn. You must be proud of Will, and I am sure you are pleased that he's staying at the Grange with me. Oh my God. Mr. Brooke, of course, had no idea what Casborn thought about Will, and he had no idea how much the older man hated his young cousin. Casborn had hated Will when he was helping him. He hated him even more now that Will no longer needed him. Casborn wished that Will would go far away from Middlemarch, and he made sure that the young man was never invited to Lowick Manor. Will understood his cousin's feelings about him very well. He also thought that Casborn had been very wrong to marry Dorothea Brooke. Will had become very interested in Casborn's beautiful young wife. He always enjoyed talking to her, but they did not often have the chance to see each other alone. One day, Will decided that he wanted to make a sketch of some trees at Lowick. He sat down in a place where Dorothea liked to walk and began to draw. But almost at once, clouds covered the sky and heavy rain began to fall. Will ran into the house where he met the butler in the hall. Don't announce me, Pratt, Will said quickly. I know that Mr. Casborn does not like to be disturbed. Mr. Casborn is out, sir, Pratt answered. But Mrs. Casborn is in the library. I'll tell her that you are here, sir. Shall I? Oh, very well, Will said. It's raining really hard now. I must give up sketching for the day. In another minute, he was in the library where Dorothea greeted him with her sweetest smile. I'm so glad that you have come, she said. I'm afraid Mr. Casborn will be out all day. Did you want to see him about something? No, no, Will said quickly. I came to sketch, but the rain drove me inside. Then I am pleased that it is raining, Dorothea replied. She felt that Will's visit was like a window opening and letting the light into a darkened room. We have not been alone since Rome, Will said quietly. I've been studying a great deal since then, Dorothea said. I can read and understand Greek and Latin a little now. I'm trying so hard to help my husband, you see. A woman can do nothing by herself, so my plan is to spend my life making his work easier. Perhaps you're working too hard, Will replied. You look very pale. You stay indoors too much. Mr. Caswell should get a secretary. But what would I do then? Poor Dorothea cried. The villagers of Lowick have everything that they need. There is nothing for me to do here. I want to help my husband more, not less. He would hate to have a secretary. Mr. Caswell offered me that job once, Will said, with a smile. But I was not good enough for it. Dorothea smiled. You were not a steady worker, she said. That is not true, Will answered. Mr. Caswell may have told you that, but the truth is, he does not like anyone to criticize his work. He's too unsure of himself. I disagreed with his ideas. That was the problem, and that is why he dislikes me. Dorothea did not answer at once. Then she said, Mr. Caswell has helped you in spite of his feelings. He must be praised for that. Of course, Will said quickly. He has been very fair. My grandmother was disinherited because she felt she left her family to marry a poor man, a Polish refugee. They were happy together, I think, but they both died very young. I wish that I had known her, Dorothea cried. It must have been so difficult to be poor after being so rich. She must have loved her husband so much to give up everything for him. Do you know anything more about them? They both died before I was born, Will said. My grandfather was a clever man. He was musical and he spoke several languages. My father was musical too, and of course, he was very poor. It's a different world, Dorothea said, looking sadly at Will with her beautiful dark eyes. I've always had too much of everything. Cannot imagine being poor. But how did Mr. Casaubon? My father wrote to him to ask for help, Will explained. I remember being hungry, and my father was very ill by then. He died very soon afterwards, and Mr. Casaubon took care of my mother and myself. And is your mother still alive? Dorothy asked quietly. No, she died 4 years ago. She had a difficult life. When she was young, she had left her family too, but for a different reason. She was very pretty and she ran away to become an actress. So you see, if I'm a rebel, it's in my blood. Will added with a smile. But I never wished to do anything that you would not approve of. That is very good of you, Dorothea said with a laugh. But I expect you will be leaving the ground soon. You will get tired of your friends in Middlemarch. That is not true, Will replied. Your uncle, Mr. Brooke, wants me to go on living at the ground and to help him with his newspaper. I want to stay in this part of the country. I would not feel at home anywhere else. Then I want you to stay too, Dorothea said. I want you to stay very much. Will smiled and walked over to the window, but the next moment Dorothea thought of her husband and his feelings towards his young cousin. But that is just my view. You must be guided by Mr. Casaubon's wishes, not mine, she said. Why not wait here and ask him about it when he comes home? Not today, Will said quickly. Look, the rain has stopped. I'd better go now, as I am walking back to the ground. Goodbye. Goodbye, Dorothea repeated sadly. I wish you could have stayed. Mr. Casaubon returned to Lowick Manor later in the afternoon. Have you had a good day, dear? Dorothea asked. Mr. Casaubon smiled and nodded several times. Yes, there was very interesting. There was very interesting conversation at lunch, and my work was praised, he said cheerfully. I'm so glad, Dorothea replied. I had an interesting conversation too, with Mr. Ladislaw. Casaubon sighed and closed his eyes. My uncle has bought one of the Middlemarch newspapers, Dorothea went on, and he has asked Mr. Ladislaw to stay with him and write articles for the paper. My uncle has become interested in politics, she added. Mr. Ladislaw wishes to have a steady job and he would like to stay in this part of the country because no one else cares for him. He wanted to know your opinion. Mr. Casaubon did not answer, but the next morning he sent his cousin a letter. The letter began. Dear Mr. Ladislaw, the work that you intend doing in the neighborhood does not please me. In the past, I have helped you by giving you money and letting you live the life of a gentleman. You should think about my social position before taking up this unsuitable work. I have no power to stop you, but I do have the power to end any friendship between us. If you take up this position, you will no longer be welcome in my house. Edward Casaubon. Dorothea had no idea that her husband had sent this letter. She had been thinking she had been thinking of how he could help Will Ladislaw. She knew that Mr. Casaubon had a great deal of money, all of which he was leaving to her. But I have enough money of my own, more than enough, Dorothea said to herself. It would be better if Edward left some of his money to Will. Will was very poor as a child. It would be wrong to keep all this money when some of it could help him in his care. I am sure that Edward would agree with me. Dorothea had no chance to speak to her husband during the day, but she had a chance later that night. As usual, Mr. Casaubon slept badly, and after a few hours, he asked Dorothea to light a candle. Do you feel ill, dear? She asked gently. No, but I cannot sleep. Perhaps you would read to me for a little while. May I talk to you instead? Dorothea asked. Of course. I've been thinking about money all day, Dorothea said. I've always had too much. It is so unfair when others, like your Aunt Julia, had so little. We've been generous to Will, her grandson, already, but I've another plan. Dorothea was silent for a few moments, but Casaubon did not answer. Leave half of your money to Will, Dorothea went on. It is not right that he is poor when we are so rich. Has Mr. Ladislaw asked you to say this? Casaubon said in a cold, angry voice. Has he asked you for money? No, Dorothea said quickly. That is very unkind. Of course, Will hasn't asked for money. This is my idea, and I think that it is a good one. It certainly is not, Casaubon replied angrily. You are a young woman, Dorothea, and you know very little about such things. This is not the first time that you have given me a foolish opinion of this kind. Please do not interfere between me and Mr. Ladislaw. You are becoming too friendly with Will, and, as a result, too critical of me, your husband. Dorothea's eyes filled with tears, and she was glad that her husband could not see them. She was beginning to feel that she was living in a bad dream. She felt very frightened and very unhappy. The next day, Will Ladislaw answered his cousin's letter. He rejected all Casaubon's suggestions, politely but firmly. Casaubon himself spoke to no one about his feelings. He did not want people to know that his marriage was not perfect. He tried to hide his jealousy of Will, but it grew stronger day by day. Casbon was already making plans to make Will's life unpleasant, and he was determined to keep Will and Dorothea apart, whatever happened. Plans. Chapter 10. Mr. Brooke's latest interest was in local politics, but he was also thinking of standing for Parliament, a Parliament that would be reformed by the will of the people. Although he was not a young man, he was full of enthusiasm, but Mr. Brooke's thoughts and ideas were often confused. What he said and what he did were two different things. Mr. Brooke's friends began to feel worried. Brooke was a very rich man with a big estate, but he was not a good landlord. He did not look after his tenants well, and the local farmers often complained about him. Your uncle will make a fool of himself if he tries to stand for Parliament, Sir James said to Celia. People in Middlemarch are not interested in politics. They're interested in their own lives. They will not listen to Brooke's political ideas for the future because he does not help them now. The Tipton estate is not well managed because Brooke tries to do everything himself. He got rid of his farm manager, Caleb Garth, to save money. Garth was a good worker and Brooke should take him back. Dorothea used to help Uncle too, Celia replied. Now she thinks of nothing but her unpleasant old husband and his boring work. Then tell her that you are not feeling well. Invite her here for a few days by herself, Sir James said. Explain the problem. Then we'll take her to the Grange and she can speak to your uncle about the estate. He will listen to her. A few days later, Mr. Brooke and Will Ladislaw were working together in the library at the Grange. Ladislaw was bored, and while Mr. Brooke was talking about reform, the young man was thinking of several other things. When Mrs. Casbon's name was announced, Will stood up in a state of great excitement. Dorothea's entrance into the room was like dawn breaking at the start of a perfect day. Will was full of happiness, and his mind and body felt completely alive again. Well, my dear. Oh, sorry. Oops. Well, my dear, this is a pleasant surprise, Mr. Brooke said, as he kissed his niece. You've left your husband with his books, I suppose. That is right. A woman's mind cannot stand too much learning. You're right, uncle, Dorothea replied with a smile. I often find myself thinking of other things when I am copying my husband's notes. Planning cottages for the villagers of Tipton was much easier than Greek and Latin. Dorothea smiled again. We all want to improve the lives of poor people, she went on. Sir James tells me that you have so many plans for the Tipton estate. If you go into Parliament, your main concern will be the people in your own land. Will be for the people on your own land. Mr. Garth can manage the place again, and there will be so many improvements. Oh, I wish that I could help. I wish I could help you with them. But now you have Will, of course. What changes you will be able to make and what good you will do together. Now, my dear, we can't go too fast, her uncle explained. I never said that I would do that, but I never said that I would not do that, you know. At that moment, a servant came in with a message. Mr. Brooke hurried out, and Will and Dorothea were left alone. I shall not forget that you came here, Will said quickly. You're a good influence on your uncle. I'm trying to be one too. As you know, he has many ideas, but they are not always sensible ones. But I have to speak to you about something else, he went on, as I may not have another chance to talk about it. Dorothea turned and walked towards the open window. Please, tell me what it is, she said quietly. I suppose you know that your husband has forbidden me to go to his house, Will began. No, I did not, Dorothea replied. I'm very, very sorry. I wish I could do something about it. But my husband is very stubborn. He rarely changes his mind about anything. I wonder why he said that to you. He dislikes what I'm doing for your uncle, Will said. Mr. Caswell says that it is unsuitable work for a member of his family. I think that isn't fair. I'm an honourable man, and I shall do the work in an honourable way. I'm sure you will, Dorothea said sadly. Perhaps we had better not say any more. You will be staying here, I suppose? Yes, but we shall hardly ever see each other. Hardly ever, Dorothea repeated softly. But I shall hear about you. I shall know what you are doing from my uncle. But no one will tell me anything about you, Will said. There will be nothing to tell. I'm always at Lowick, Dorothea replied. Lowick Manor is your prison, Will said quickly. Please do not say that. I shall be trying to help others, and so will you. I try not to think of my own desires now. My life is easy. The days will pass at Lowick as they would pass anywhere, and the days will pass for you too. I told you once that I am a rebel, Will replied with a smile. I don't always do what I'm told. But if you do what is good, that doesn't matter, Dorothea said. Then she added, I must go now. Celia is expecting me. And with one last smile, she left Will alone with his thoughts. When Dorothea returned home to Lowick Manor, she did not tell her husband that she had seen Will Ladislow. Mr. Casaubon did not question his wife about her visit. Instead, he told her that Dr. Lydgate was coming to see him later that afternoon. Have you been feeling unwell, dearest? Dorothea said quickly. I should not have left you alone. No, no, I just want to ask Lydgate a few questions, Casaubon replied. When he calls, I shall be taking my usual walk in the garden nearest to the house. Ask him to meet me there. The truth was that Mr. Casaubon was deeply unhappy. To his surprise, his marriage to Dorothea had not made his life easier. His wife was good and beautiful, but Mr. Casaubon had been troubled to find that she had ideas of her own. She made judgments, and sometimes she criticized his work. She had even suggested that it might never be finished. This thought had upset Mr. Casaubon very much, and he had made him afraid. Other things were upsetting him too. Will Ladislow was living nearby, and Casaubon hated him. He hated Will's youth, his good looks, and his independence. And most of all, Mr. Casaubon feared Will's plans for the future. Casaubon said to himself, I know why he has come so friendly with Brooke. Ladislow is waiting for me to die. Then he will persuade Dorothea to marry him. Dead or alive, I shall stop that marriage. He will never take what is mine. I must make it impossible for Dorothea ever to think of marrying him. So Casaubon had made his plans, and then he invited Dr. Lydgate to Lowick Manor. Lydgate, who was now married to Rosamond Vincy, had just returned from his honeymoon. When he arrived at Lowick, he saw Casaubon walking slowly up and down in the garden. Poor Casaubon, he is half dead already, Lydgate said to himself. He is only middle-aged, but he already walks and looks like an old man. Thank you for coming here, Casaubon said to Lydgate when he saw the young man. I have a few questions to ask you. I think that you will give me honest answers. I will try, Lydgate replied. I have already examined you very carefully, but no doctor can can be right all the time. Have you been feeling ill recently? No, not exactly, Casaubon replied. As you know, my life's work is still unfinished. If I die, completely I want it to be completed by others. Tell me the truth, Dr. Lydgate. You have examined me. You know all my symptoms. Is my disease fatal? How long do I have to live? Your heart is weak, and death could be very sudden. On the other hand, you may live for many years yet, Lydgate replied. No doctor can say for certain. Have you told Mrs. Casaubon this? I did suggest it. I did suggest it, Lydgate replied. Your wife is a brave woman, Mr. Casaubon. She wanted to know the truth. Casaubon nodded. Thank you. That is all I wanted to know, he asked. He said. Dorothea saw Dr. Lydgate ride away, and she began to walk slowly towards her husband. She smiled at him, but his look was so cold that she felt afraid. When she reached him, she tried to put her arm through his, but he went on alone. He did not want her pity. They walked slowly into the house, and then Mr. Casaubon went into the library and shut the door behind him. Dorothea slowly climbed the stairs up to her own room. It was a beautiful evening, but the poor girl was too unhappy to look out of the window, and she was too angry to cry. Why does he treat me like this? She said to herself. Nothing I do is right. He wishes that he had never married me, and he will not allow me to help him at all. What do I have to live for? That evening, Dorothea's maid, Tantrip, knocked at her door. Mr. Casaubon is having his dinner in the library. He is very busy, madame. The maid said quietly, Let me bring you something to eat here. No, thank you, Tantrip. I'm not well. I shall go to bed soon, Dorothea replied with a sigh. She sat alone in the darkness for nearly 3 hours. Then she stood up and walked to the top of the stairs. The library door opened, and her husband began to walk slowly up the stairs towards her. He looked very old and ill. Were you waiting for me, Dorothea? He asked in surprise. Yes, I did not like to disturb you, she replied. For the first time that day, Dorothea felt sorry for her husband. She put her arm in his, and they walked along the corridor together. Now, chapter 11. The answer. Dorothea wanted to know if her husband's illness was getting worse. She did not want to ask Casaubon himself about it, so she decided to visit Lydgate at his home. Dorothea did not often leave home without her husband, but 2 days later she ordered the carriage and was driven into Middlemarch. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the carriage stopped outside Lydgate's house. But Dorothea was told that Dr. Lydgate was out. Then she remembered that the doctor had recently been married. Is Mrs. Lydgate at home? She asked the servant. Yes, ma'am. Then will you ask her if she can see Mrs. Casaubon for a few minutes? Dorothea said. As she spoke, she heard a man's voice and the sound of a piano coming from the sitting room of the beautiful furnished house. Then the maid showed Dorothea into the elegant room, and Rosamond walked forward. With a smile, Dorothea held out her hand to Dr. Lydgate's lovely wife. The two women, who were so different, had never met before. Rich and important local families like the Chethams and Brookes did not often meet the trade people of Middlemarch. They did not belong to the same level of society, The two beautiful young women were dressed very differently too. Dorothea, as usual, was wearing a very plain, cream-coloured dress, and she wore no jewellery except her golden wedding ring. In contrast, Rosamond was dressed in the latest and most expensive fashion. She wore a pale blue dress with a large collar. Her small white hands were covered with rings. Thank you for seeing me, Dorothea. Thank you for seeing me, Dorothea said. I'm anxious to see Dr. Lydgate. Could you tell me where I can find him? He's at the new hospital, Rosamond replied. I can send someone for him at once. Let me go, Will Ladislaw said, stepping forward. Oh, I did not think that I would see you here, Dorothea said in surprise. Her voice was filled with pleasure at seeing him. Will moved towards the door, but then Dorothea added, Don't worry, Mr. Ladislaw. I will drive to the hospital myself. I want to get home as quickly as possible. As Will helped Dorothea to her carriage, Dorothea suddenly felt confused. She had been surprised to see him alone with Rosamond Lydgate, and she did not know what to think. Will also felt confused and sad as he watched Dorothea's carriage drive away. He was now living in Middlemarch, and he saw a good deal of the Lydgates, but he was able to see Dorothea less and less. He felt that Dorothea had not been pleased to see him at the Lydgates' house. Had Casborne been turning her against him? Curse him if he had. When Will returned to Rosamond, he told her that he had to leave. Rosamond smiled. Mrs. Casborne looks very clever, is she? Rosamond asked. You know her quite well, I think. Clever? I never thought about it, Will replied crossly. You men are so strange, Rosamond said with a laugh. That is exactly what Tertius said when I asked him if Mrs. Casborne was beautiful. What are you both thinking of when you meet her? She's perfect, Will said. That is what I think. Then perhaps I should be jealous when Tertius goes to Lowick, Rosamond said with a laugh as Will was leaving. He did not reply. When her husband was at home again, Rosamond said, Mr. Ladislaw was here singing with me when Mrs. Casborne came in. Will seemed upset that she had seen him here. Do you know, I think he's deeply in love with Mrs. Casborne. I think that he adores her. Poor fellow, Lydgate said with a smile. Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Rosamond asked. Why, when a man adores one of you beauties, he stops thinking about his work and thinks only of her. Well, I'm sure you put your work first. You're always at the hospital or seeing poor patients. And when you are here, you're reading a medical book or looking through your microscope at something unpleasant. I have ambitions, Rosie, Lydgate replied. Wouldn't you like to see me as something more than a Middlemarch doctor? And to be that, I must work and write. I have never stopped you working. Tertius, Rosamond said, but we should go out more. You're not getting tired of me, are you? I love you more than ever, Rosie, Lydgate said as he kissed his wife's beautiful face. But what did Mrs. Casborne want to see you about today? Rosamond asked. She was worried about her husband's health, Lydgate replied. But she is interested in a new hospital too. I think she will give us £200 a year. I think what a help that will be. Rosamond was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Sometimes wish that you were not a doctor, Tertius. You're always talking about money. Medicine is not a nice profession. Please Do not say that, Lydgate cried. It upsets me. It is like saying you wished you had married another man. Medicine is the greatest profession in the world, Rosie. Will and his Lowe continued to visit the Lydgates. The two men got on well together, although they were so different. Will enjoyed singing with Rosamond too, but his thoughts were always with Dorothea Casborn. Now that I'm living in Middlemarch and not Tipton Manor, I may never see her again, Will said to himself. And then he remembered that the next day was Sunday. If I go to Lowick Church tomorrow morning, I shall see her there, Lydgate thought. Mr. Casborn can't stop me going to church, can he? I may even have a chance to speak to Dorothea herself. On Sunday, the weather was perfect, and Will enjoyed his walk through the fields. He arrived at the church early, but the Casborns were not there. Then he arrived at the church early, but the Casborns were not there. Then at last Dorothea arrived, followed by her husband, who was not preaching that day. Dorothea bowed as she passed Will, and her face was very pale. Will suddenly felt very uncomfortable, and he wished that he had stayed at home. He dared not look at Dorothea, and at the end of the service, the Casborns left the church first. Again, Dorothea bowed, but this time her eyes were full of tears. Her husband did not look at Will at all. Will walked out after them, but they did not stop. In a few minutes, the Casborn had crossed the churchyard and were in the gardens of Lowick Manor, where Will could not follow them. He walked home sadly, all hope gone. Dorothea, too, was very upset as she walked home. It was clear that Mr. Casborn would not change his mind. He was determined never to speak to his young cousin again. Mr. Casborn was not very well that day, and he said very little at lunch. As usual, he spent the afternoon in the library, and Dorothea went to her own room. She tried to read, but nothing interested her. More than ever, she wanted something to do, something to make her life worth living. It was Sunday, so she could not have the courage to visit Celia, who had recently had a baby. The afternoon passed very slowly for Dorothea. She did not want to read. She did not want to think. It was true. Lowick Manor was her prison. After dinner, Mr. Casborn was more cheerful. He asked Dorothea to follow him into the library, where he had arranged some of his important notebooks on the table. He took up the one containing the main points of his work. Please read this aloud to me, he said. And when I say mark, make a mark with your pencil, and then read on. This will help you to select the most important ideas and take an intelligent interest in my work. They worked for 2 hours, and Dorothea realized that her husband was involving her more closely in his work after his meeting with Lydgate. At her husband's request, Dorothea took the book up to their bedroom. Mr. Casborn woke up after a few hours, as he usually did, and he asked Dorothea to continue reading to him. My mind is very clear tonight, Mr. Casborn said. We must work together while we can. After nearly 2 hours, Casborn said, Close the book now, my dear. We will continue working tomorrow. I will sleep now, but before I do, I have a request to make. Dorothea suddenly felt afraid. What is it? She said. If I die, I shall want you to carry out my wishes, her husband explained. I would want you to follow them exactly. I would need a firm promise from you. There was silence. Do you refuse this request? Casborn asked coldly. No, I have not refused yet. Dorothea replied. But I don't know what your wishes are. If I don't know what you want me to do, how can I make a promise? If you refuse, you will be following your own judgment, not mine. You will be refusing to obey me, your husband. No, that is not true, poor Dorothea answered, almost in tears. In tears. I want to help you. You know I do, but I must know what I am promising. Give me time to think, dear. I'll give you my answer tomorrow. Tomorrow, then. Mr. Casimir agreed coldly. He soon fell asleep. But there was no more sleep for Dorothea. It was clear to her that if she agreed, the rest of her life would be spent in arranging and rearranging her husband's notes, whether her husband was alive or dead. Dorothea had at last fell asleep and she woke late. Her maid told her that Mr. Casbon was already in the library and waiting for her. You look very pale, madam. I've never seen you so pale, Tantripp said to her mistress as she helped her dress. Don't go into that dark old library, madam. Sit in the garden and rest. It's a lovely day. Oh, no, Mr. Casbon wants me in the library. I must go, Dorothea said quickly, and she hurried downstairs. Where have you been, Dorothea? I've been waiting for you for some time, Casbon said. I had hoped to start work at once, but I'm feeling rather unwell. I shall go and walk in the garden before we begin. Can you give me the answer I want now? Perhaps I could join you there very soon, Dorothea said quietly. I will let you know my answer then. Casbon sighed and nodded. You know my favourite walk, he said. I shall be in the garden for the next half hour. Don't be long, Dorothea. Remember, I'm waiting for your answer. Casamon stood up, walked slowly across the room and out into the garden. Dorothea stayed in the library and she sat there very still. Then after a time she rang for Tantripp and asked for her bonnet and shawl. Tantripp had known Dorothea all her life and she knew that something was wrong. God bless you, madam, the maid said, as she put the shawl around the beautiful girl's shoulders. Dorothea began to cry and cry. At last she made herself stand up and walk through the open glass door into the garden. The poor girl walked very slowly. She felt trapped by her husband's request. All her heart and mind told her to say no, but she knew that she was too weak to refuse him. She found Casbon in the summer house. He was sitting very still. His arms were resting on the table in front of him, and his hands were covering his face. I'm here, Edward, Dorothea said quietly. I'm ready. Casbon did not answer, and Dorothea thought that he was asleep. Wake up, dear. Please listen to me, she said. I'm ready now, Edward. I'm ready to give you my answer. But Edward Casbon was dead. He had not lived long enough to hear the answer that he wanted from his wife. Later that day, Lydgate was called to Lowick Manor, and he sat beside Dorothea's bed as she called her husband's name, over and over again. The poor girl was half mad with grief. Tell Edward I shall go to him soon, Dorothea cried out. Tell him that I am ready to promise. But thinking about it has made me ill, so very ill. I shall soon be better. Go and tell him. Please, tell Edward that. But it was too late. Now the promise would never be made. Lucky for her. Chapter 12, final chapter now. Power beyond the grave. It was the day after Casaubon's funeral, and Dorothea was still too ill to leave her room. Sir James Chatham was in the library at Lowick Manor, talking to Mr. Brooke. I wish that we could keep the truth about the will from Dorothea, Sir James was saying angrily. She's not well, and she should not be upset. She was only married for 18 months, and now this has happened. We can't stop her finding out, Chatham, Mr. Brooke replied. Dorothea is an executor of her husband's will, and she was 21 last December. She will want to know everything. There is nothing we can do about it. Sir James thought for a minute, and then he said, Dorothea must come to live at Freshitt Hall for a time. Being with Celia and the baby will be good for her. Until Dorothea is better, we will deal with any business, not her. And you must get rid of young Ladislaw. Send him out of the country. Mr. Brooke walked to the window. Then he turned and said, I can't do that, Chatham. Ladislaw has been very useful to me. Very useful, you know. But things are different now, Sir James replied quickly. I am Dorothea's brother-in-law, and I feel that Casaubon has insulted her. Casaubon was jealous of Ladislaw. We all know that. But why did he have to add those instructions to his will? Now everyone will be gossiping about that young man and your niece. Send him away, Brooke. Send him away. If we send Ladislaw away, people will think that we do not trust Dorothea, Mr. Brooke said. But take her to Freshitt with you. That will be the very best thing for her. So Dorothea went to Freshitt Hall to stay with Sir James, and Celia, who did her best to bring a smile to her sister's sad face. Every morning they sat together in a pretty little sitting room and watched Celia's baby, little Arthur. But even her her wonderful little nephew could not make Dorothea smile. Brooke was right when he had predicted that Dorothea would want to know everything. It was less than a week before she began to think about her husband's will. Perhaps Sir James would drive me over to Lowick, Dorothea said to her sister. I want to look at all my husband's papers. I must see his will too, of course. Edward may have left some instructions for me, she added, and her eyes were full of tears. You're not to go until Dr. Lydgate says you can go, Celia said. You'll upset yourself. You think there is something unpleasant in this will, don't you, my dear? What are you talking about, Celia? Dorothy asked. Now you're upsetting me. What unpleasant thing? I don't know what you mean. Then I'd better tell you, Celia answered calmly. He, your husband, Mr. Casaubon, added some new instructions to his will. Everything, land, property, money, everything will be taken away from you if you marry. Marry? I will never marry, Dorothea said quickly. If you marry Mr. Ladislaw, Celia went on, not anyone else, just Mr. Ladislaw. Dorothea blushed and her eyes filled with tears. She did not know what to say or do. Her dead husband had insulted her from beyond the grave, and she hated him for that. Dorothea had never before thought of Will Ladislaw as a lover, but now the idea took hold of her mind for the first time. Had Will ever thought of her in that way? She would never know. How could they ever see each other again? They can never be friends now. At that moment, Dr. Lydgate was announced. He entered the room to see Dorothea looking very pale in her black widow's clothes. "You're not well, Mrs. Casaubon," he said kindly. "I agree. I agree," Celia said. "She wants to go over to Lowick to look at some papers. I think she should stay here and rest." Lydgate thought for a moment before replying. Then he said, "Mrs. Casaubon should be allowed to do what she wants." So Dorothea was driven back to Lowick Manor for a short time. She looked everywhere, but found nothing new. Casaubon had wanted his wife to spend the rest of her life completing his work. He had made that clear to her, but he had died before Dorothea had given him her answer. Edward Casaubon no longer had any power over Dorothea's life, and now she had no pity for him at all. Casaubon's last wish had shown his true feelings, and Dorothea hated the idea of his money. Dorothea returned to Freshitt, and she stayed there until the end of June. Will Ladislaw was busy helping Mr. Brooke with his political work. The young man was working hard and heard nothing of the gossip about Mr. Casaubon and his will. But Ladislaw noticed that Mr. Brooke did not invite him to Tipton Grant so often. "I am being kept away from Mrs. Casaubon," Will said to himself. "We're divided forever, and in so many different ways. She has property and a high place in society, in local society. I am a poor stranger and half foreign, too. We could not be more different." While Dorothea is staying at Freshitt, I can never see her. Sir James hates my politics because he hates all change. Mr. Brooke wants to be a reformer, but he will never succeed in Middlemarch. He does not look after his estate, and people here do not respect him. Will was right about the people of Middlemarch. Mr. Brooke wished to service his country by standing for Parliament. He had bought the Pioneer newspaper to express his ideas on reforming English politics. But before he was accepted as a candidate, Mr. Brooke had to speak to the people of Middlemarch. In his speech, he had to convince the townspeople that he was the best man to represent them. The time for Mr. Brooke's speech had come. He walked out into the balcony of the White Hart Inn. He smiled and looked down at all the people who had crowded into the marketplace to hear him. "Gentlemen, electors of Middlemarch," Mr. Brooke began, "I'm very happy to be here. Proud and happy." The crowd was silent. Will had written down the main points of Mr. Brooke's speech for him, but he was not sure what Mr. Brooke would say. "You know me. I'm your neighbor," Mr. Brooke went on. "I've always tried to help you, the good people of Middlemarch. But the world is a big place. The traders and manufacturers of Middlemarch send their goods to many different countries. That is right. Now Middlemarch must follow new ideas. New ideas, from other countries. I must play my part, and so must you." "Must?" someone shouted. "In Middlemarch we do what's best for ourselves, not for other countries." "Or for rich landlords like you," someone else called out. Some of the crowd laughed and cheered. Another voice shouted, "Curse your ideas. People like you don't know what reform is. We want the bill. We want real reform. Down with the landlords." And here we've got a lovely illustration of Mr. Brooke and Mr. Ladislaw here, and the crowd here. The crowd cheered again, more loudly than before. We all want reform, liberty, freedom, and so on, Mr. Brooke went on. Then start with your own estate, another man shouted. There is not much freedom there. Repair the farm buildings, pay your man better wages, bring back Garth to put things in order. Then we may listen to you in your talk of reform. At that moment, someone threw an egg at Mr. Brooke. It hit him on the shoulder. Several more eggs followed. Men in the crowd began to shout and laugh. Mr. Brooke went on speaking for a little longer, but no one could hear him. In the end, he left the balcony, shaking his head sadly. They did not listen. They did not they did not listen. They did not give me time, Mr. Brooke said to Will. They're not ready for reform, you know, he added. They're not ready for anything new, Will replied. He was angry with Mr. Brooke and angry with himself too. He needed to think about what to do next. People are laughing at Brooke now, and they will soon be laughing at me, Will told himself when he was alone. Dorothea will not thank me for helping her uncle make a fool of himself, and her friends will blame me too. I must get away. Yes, I will go to London and study law. In 5 years' time, I could be a successful politician, even famous, perhaps. Then I can return to Middlemarch as Dorothea's equal and tell her how I feel. But how do I know that she will wait for me? I'll have to stay a little longer. I must know how she feels before I go. The next day, Mr. Brooke asked Will to Tipton Grange. I think I must give up the Pioneer, Brooke told him. I am not a young man, Ladislaw. You may stand for Parliament one day, but I never will now. You have a bright future in front of you, I'm sure, but not perhaps in Middlemarch. I'm very grateful to you, Will said proudly, but you should not worry about what I decide to do next. I'm going away for a time, Mr. Brooke went on. Middlemarch is a small place, you know. A young man like you would do better in London. Will thought that he understood Mr. Brooke very well. The family would like to get rid of me, Will said to himself. But I shall go when I want to go and not before. And I must see Dorothea first. Some time later, Dorothea decided to return to Lowick Manor. The library was opened again, and light filled that dark room once more. The young widow walked through all the rooms of the sad house, thinking about the 18 months of her married life. Then she went back to the library and arranged all her husband's notebooks carefully. Was one of them missing? Dorothea looked through all the drawers in her husband's desk again. At the back of one of them, she saw an envelope that she had not seen before. In the envelope was the missing notebook. She opened it. Table of contents, listing the main points of my life's work for the use of Mrs. Casaubon, who would complete it after my death. Dorothea shook her head and smiled sadly. Then she put the notebook back and wrote on the envelope. I could not do it. Surely you can see that. I could not work for the rest of my life at something I did not believe in. Dorothea put the envelope in her own desk and never opened it again. Then she stood up, sighed, and looked out into the garden. It was full of light and colour, but it did not please her, because her heart was sad. She longed to see Will Ladislaw, but she was not even sure that he was in Middlemarch. There is no one I can ask, Dorothea thought to herself. Perhaps Will has heard about my husband's wishes. Perhaps he doesn't want to see me again. Sorry. Perhaps he doesn't want to see me again. But oh, how I long to see him. One morning, a few days later, Dorothea was sitting in her own room. She was trying to work out her income, but instead she was looking out of the window at the scene she knew so well. Everything was still and quiet. Nothing moved. It is like my life, Dorothea said to herself. It will never change now. Things will go on from day to day, and I shall never be here for the rest of my life. At that moment, Tantrip came in and said, Mr. Ladislaw is downstairs, madam. He would like to see you, if it is not too early. Show Mr. Ladislaw into the sitting room. I shall see him there, Dorothea said quickly. This meeting was very different from their first meeting in Rome. Will had been embarrassed, and Dorothea had been calm. Now Dorothea's heart was beating very fast as she came into the room. Will turned to look at her. She was dressed completely in black, and her face was pale. But she looked very beautiful, perhaps more beautiful than she had ever been before. They walked towards each other, and Dorothea held out her hand. Let us sit near the window. It is such a lovely day, Dorothea said quietly. I hope that you do not mind my calling, Will said quickly. I did not wish to leave the neighborhood and begin a new life without saying goodbye to you. It would have been unkind of you to leave without seeing me, Dorothea replied with a smile. Are you going away at once? Very soon, Will replied. I'm going to London. Very soon, I'm going to London, where I hope to train for a barrister. Working with your uncle has made me more interested in politics, Will went on. Things are changing in England. I would like to be part of those changes. Other men, without family or money, have led successful and useful lives. I want to do the same. And I am sure that you will, Dorothea said with a sweet smile. You care for honor and justice. You care for people. So you approve of my going away, perhaps for years, Will said. He wanted so much to know what Dorothea was thinking, but she did not answer at once. Dorothea turned and stared out of the window. It was a long time before she spoke. I will be happy when I hear you have done well, she said at last. But we will have to be patient. It may be a long while. When Dorothea said that, so slowly and sadly, Will wanted to take her in his arms, but he dare not. You will forget all about me, he said. No, Dorothea said, I shall never forget you. I do not know many people, and very little happens at Lowick. I shall have plenty of time to think about you. At hearing this, Will stood up suddenly and walked across to a table. He leaned against it, hat in hand. Blood had rushed into his cheeks. He wanted Dorothea to know his true feelings, but he did not dare to tell her. He had no idea what the beautiful young widow thought about him. May I give you this portrait of your grandmother? Dorothea said, holding out the little painting. She looks so very like you. No, no, Will replied quickly. I would be happier if someone else wanted it for that reason. She looks very, yeah. I would be happier, sorry. I would be happier if someone else wanted it for that reason. I have very few things of my own. Why would I want that? You're happier than me, Dorothea said sadly. You have nothing, but I have too much. Will looked surprised. How can poverty be good when it keeps me from what I most care for? He asked. Sometimes silence does the same, Dorothea said sadly. When we cannot find words, at that moment, her butler, Pratt, came into the room and said, Sir James Chatham is in the library, ma'am. Ask him to come in. Ask him to come in here, Dorothea replied without thinking. Will and Dorothea stood in silence until Sir James came into the room. He shook hands with Dorothea and bowed coldly to Will Ladislaw. Sir James did not approve of Will, and he was unhappy to see him alone with Dorothea. Will understood this, and he decided to leave at once. I must say goodbye, Mrs. Casaubon, he said. It will be a goodbye for a long time. Will's pride would not let him say more. With one last look, she shook hands with Dorothea. He shook hands with Dorothea, bowed to Sir James, and left the room. Sir James did not realize how much he had hurt Will's pride by his coldness. By coming into the room at that moment, Sir James had made it impossible for Will and Dorothea to explain their feelings for each other before Will left Middlemarch. If Sir James had known that, he would have been very satisfied. But he did not understand that any hope of future happiness had gone from Dorothea's heart. When she looked at the little portrait of Will's grandmother again, she cried because it reminded her of Will. I wonder when he will be leaving Middlemarch. No, it's Dorothea. I wonder when he will be leaving Middlemarch, Dorothea asked herself. He will never come here again. It might be years before we meet again. I must make a new life for myself, she thought. I own a lot of land now, and I cannot look after it all myself. Caleb Garth is working for my uncle again, and he can work for me too. There are more people in the villages that I can help. Thinking about their problems will help me forget mine. Will stayed on in Middlemarch for some time, but Dorothea did not know it. No one in her family talked about him, and she dared not ask whether he had left the town or not. Right, so this is it. This is the end of our chapter and the end of our guided reading for today. This is actually a very long session. I didn't expect that today I would do such a long recap of the chapters from last week, but I will close now. I hope you enjoyed this third guided reading session. Make sure you subscribe to the book club to join the next book talk this Saturday. We're so looking forward to meet you and discuss with you about Middlemarch. I will see you next Wednesday, the 11th of June at 11 a.m. Central 11 a.m. Central European Time, for a new guided reading session of chapters 13 and 16. And of course, if you want to be able to attend this live session with me, this guided reading session, subscribe to the book club. Bye bye.